Hi everybody, this is Dino Chris from Prehistoric Facts, and this is an extra episode, and now we'll be reviewing a really well-known TV show that we had one series on the History Channel, and that would be Jurassic Fight Club. And if anybody has actually this kind of series, it's created by Dinosaur George Blassing, and he actually is an inspiration for my podcast, and pretty much anybody that actually is actually want to know more about dinosaurs. And of course, Jurassic Fight Club it actually began in 2007, and was actually a really well hyped up series on History Channel. It was advertised almost everywhere, especially on sports media. Can you believe it? Like ESPN was actually advertising this. NFL Network was advertising this. I mean, it was actually like this thing was so hyped up. It was like built like this was like the next video game that was going to be coming out, that sort of thing. But anyway, Jurassic Fight Club, it has 12 episodes, and so it was only one season. It was only on for one season, even though this is actually a well done type of series in terms of that. You actually did have actual paleontologists being interviewed for each episode. You have paleontologists like Phil Curry, Dr. Holtz, Peter Larson, Mark Norrell, and all these types of paleontologists that actually know their stuff. Even James Kirkland actually made some appearances in this series. And most of the episodes are typically about dinosaurs. There is actually two episodes that do not fall in line with dinosaurs. One is actually based in the marine age of the Miocene, which is actually Megalodon versus the biting sperm whale, or Brigmophyseter And then you actually have the Ice Age fight, which is actually the giant short-faced bear and the American lion. Now, each episode actually has their own kind of title. The first episode is actually Cannibal Dinosaur, which is actually Majungasaurus versus Majungasaurus. At that time, it was called Majungatholus, but even though now that's actually considered, now Majungatholus is considered invalid, so now Majungasaurus is actually the more valid name for that abyssosaurid, because that was the name that was given first. And so that episode was actually more of about like the evidence of a Majungasaurus skeleton that actually had bite marks on the ribs, legs, and some bits of the tail. And so that would actually, I would give that episode probably say, I'm going to be doing a letter grade on these episodes. Like Cannibal Dinosaur, I would actually give that one probably like a B minus, given the fact that it was actually a very well done type of episode. But I would say the animatronics are actually not too bad, but also I would say like some of the information that was actually given at that time was actually a little bit is actually a little bit dated. But even though it's actually kind of taken place a little bit further along to explain it a little bit more once we actually knew more about Majungasaurus as a whole. But Majungasaurus became a well-known dinosaur thanks to Jurassic Fight Club. Then the second episode was T-Rex Hunter. Now that was actually T-Rex versus Nanotyrannus. Now I would say that this episode would still be a little bit more of a controversial one, considering that you still have the debate over Nanotyrannus and juvenile T-Rex type of thing. And so I think that debate will still go on, but even though I would actually give that episode probably a B, considering that it's actually very well it's shown that it actually has that team of scientists that found the juvenile T-Rex that actually has bite marks on it and has broken bones. Well, technically no bite marks, but it was actually just very thin blade-like teeth that were actually surrounding the juvenile T-Rex skeleton. But even though it was a well-earned battle, and I would say it was a good thing that T-Rex actually won. And then you actually have Gang Killers. Now, Gang Killers is the fossil that was found that actually was Tenontosaurus and Deinonychus. Now, that one is actually very well done. I would actually give that one probably an A minus, considering that it's actually very well documented. The one perk I would, or otherwise the one criticism I would actually have, is that the Deinonychus don't have feathers. They actually look more reptilian-like than anything else. But it was actually a very well done episode. That was actually probably like one of my favorite episodes of the series. Then you have the bloodiest battle. Now that one was actually more of the Cleveland Lloyd Quarry type of storyline. But I would say that one was actually not too bad. I would actually say that one, I would actually give probably B+, considering that it's actually got some pretty good dinosaurs on there. And also you got a pretty much a very iconic paleontological scene. Now I would say some of the information on there is still a little dated, but even though it's actually not too bad. Then you have Deep Sea Killers. Now that one was the Megalodon versus Brigmophysenes, or the biting sperm whale. That one would actually be a little bit more realistic of how that would happen. And so I would say that one is given. I would give that one an A+, considering that the animation is just perfect. That one was perfect. It was just well done, and you actually had certain paleontologists that know about the marine environment of the Miocene and the Pliocene. And then you actually have Hunter Becomes the Hunted. Now that's Allosaurus versus Ceratosaurus. Now that one, I would actually say that's one of my least favorite episodes, considering that it's actually not probably never really happened. But even though it actually would say like these animals probably didn't interact with each other for a little bit, but I think Ceratosaurus and Allosaurus probably did avoided each other. Now, when you actually look at predators today, they tend to avoid each other, especially if they're different species. They do not interact with each other to actually fight. They actually just keep out of harm's way. They do not want to fight. I would actually say I would give that one a C. That one would actually, I would actually say that one would actually be a little bit more done a little bit better if they actually said what would be the reason why these animals would have fought. And then you have Biggest Killers. Now that one was actually a list of theropod dinosaurs that were actually considered to be very dangerous. And so that, because they actually went like from Allosaurus to Utahraptor to Majungasaurus to Albertosaurus to Tyrannosaurus Rex. And so those were actually the theropod dinosaurs that were being shown in the episodes, and also those were actually the little bit more into, and they go a little bit more in depth by each type of theropod. That one I would actually give probably an A-, and considering that it was actually kind of not too bad. Raptor's Last Stand. Now that's Utahraptor versus Gastonia, and that one I would actually say that could actually have happened, but even though I would actually say that Utahraptor probably did not mess with Gastonia that much, and so that would actually be the case. But the one criticism I would say is that Utahraptor did have feathers mainly on the kind of like a mohawk type of thing from the back of the head and onto the bottom of the neck. And so I would say that could have done a little bit better. Of course, George Blasting said that money reasons were actually the reason why the raptors didn't have as many feathers as he would have liked. But even though I would actually say I'd give that one probably B-, considering that it's actually not too bad in terms of an episode. Now, Ice Age Monsters. Now that one is actually the giant short-faced bear versus the American lion, and that is actually not too bad. I would say that could have happened realistically, especially when these two animals were competing for food, and so that would actually be the case of that. And I would say that how this fight would have been is actually pretty good, and I would say that I would give this one probably a B+ for that one. And then you have River of Death. Now this is actually the Pipestone Creek discovery of multiple Pachycephalosauruses just washed up by a massive flash flood, and then you have Albertosaurus teeth all over the carcasses, and this was pretty much Pachyrhinosaurus versus Albertosaurus. Now, I would say that one is actually okay. It was an okay episode, and I would say I'll give this one probably a C+, considering that it's actually a decent type of episode. And then you have Raptor versus T-Rex. Now, this is actually kind of almost like a three-way fight. It's actually Edmontosaurus versus Dromaeosaurus, and then you have Dromaeosaurus versus T-Rex. Now, I would say this is probably this is another one of my least favorite episodes, considering that I would say that like probably yes, these two, that a Dromaeosaur and a Tyrannosaurus Rex probably did interact with each other, but they avoided each other. But also, raptors would never mess with the Tyrannosaurus Rex whatsoever. But they would try to defend their kill, but then they realized T-Rex has the bigger guns, and so. But I would say that one is actually decent. I would give it a decent grade on this. I'll give it a C, and then in that way. And then you have Armageddon. Now that talks about the Cretaceous Paleogene extinction, and so the KPG extinction. And I'd say that is my least favorite episode, because I'd say a lot of it is not totally accurate, and I would actually say that how this giant asteroid actually just coming into contact with the Earth's atmosphere, and then all of a sudden, like, the atmosphere gets so warmed up that all the dinosaurs started cooking and all that sort of stuff. That never makes any sense to me. I'd say that like some of the information was really twisted in that one. I would actually give that one pretty much a D, considering that one was probably not my favorite episode of the series, but even though it's actually not too bad. But overall as a series, I would actually give this as a B+, considering that some of the episodes were actually not too bad, but even though the animation was actually really, really cool, and the fights were actually pretty cool, but even though a lot of these fights probably did not happen, but even though they actually possibly could have happened in a way if there was the right circumstances. But George Blasting did a nice job, and also all the other paleontologists give their information really, really well. I think Tom Holtz, James Kirkland, Phil Curry, and all those other paleontologists that have actually been interviewed for these types of episodes would say that they had a fun time doing this, and then also they actually were pretty much actually given as much information as they needed to at that time. And so I would say that Peter Larson and Holtz and Phil Curry and even James Kirkland probably gave the best information overall. And then I would say George Blasting was pretty much more of like the guy that was kind of like the commentator of like everything. But he did give good information, and so it's actually pretty cool. And George, I think he did a nice job. I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of the show. Wish there could have been a second season, but even though, like you said, the money reasons were actually the reason why that you couldn't do a second season. And but hey, all of us paleontology nerds actually love the series, and we hope at some time that you could actually be part of something like that again at some point. But even though hopefully you can actually come up with enough reasons to actually come up with some pretty good fights at some point. We would like to see some of the actual like herbivores versus carnivores type of fights that I think a lot of us would like to see, especially the iconic ones like Triceratops versus T-Rex, Allosaurus versus Stegosaurus, Giganotosaurus versus Argentinosaurus, and Mosasaur against Mosasaur. I think that one would actually be pretty cool. And you actually have a bunch of other periods that you haven't gone through yet. Like, you haven't even gone through the Triassic. You haven't gone through the Permian. I would actually love to see fights that have possibly been in those types of periods. But even though a lot of the times we don't always get what we wish for. But even though, hey, it was your series, and I think you had a good time doing that, and I think everybody actually would say they had a fun time watching this series. Alright, that's it for now. Now, next time it will be an answering questions episode. So if you got any questions about dinosaurs or any other prehistoric life, feel free to email me at dinochrist71@gmail.com, or just go to my Facebook page, Prehistoric Facts of Dino Chris. Like the page, you can actually post your questions in the comments section or even on the wall of my Facebook page. But remember to keep your questions short to the point. You can also follow me on Twitter at CSJRALL. That's my Twitter page. I post pretty cool stuff on there. Also, take care of the people around you, and also for younger people out there, to make sure to listen to your parents, your teachers, and your guardians. It's the best motivation you can have a good education. It's very important to have good education. So with a good education, you get a good job in the future. And also, one more point is that I actually the Colossal Fossils Museum has actually got a new exhibit that actually replaced Ivan the Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's the Age of Humans, and that's basically all the hominids that have actually existed in the past, and included Homo sapiens, like what, pretty much us, but we're still waiting on to actually get a few more things for the exhibit to actually add on a little bit more. But even though that exhibit is going to be going on through through this month to October, and so that would actually be pretty cool. I'm trying to learn a little bit more about this because it's a type of field that is not my forte, but even though I'm actually I'm trying to learn a little bit more about hominids throughout this time of the exhibit. But I'll probably be watching episodes of Walking with Cavemen in order to actually get my in order to get the information in my head as good as I could, and hopefully we don't step on anybody's toes about this type of stuff. But anyway, that's it for now, and I'll see you guys probably on Wednesday.